it's Ivy Slater, and you're listening to Her Success Story podcast, a show where gutsy businesswomen share their success journey. Hi, this is Ivy Slater. Welcome to today's episode of Her Success Story. We are doing an amazing series, one of the fun series that we do every so often called Women Leaders in the Law. And we're highlighting it during this time that the Women Own Law, a wonderful organization, has the month of their annual symposium. So these are all women that we're being interviewing throughout the month that are somehow connected through Women Own Law. Interesting fun fact, my guest today, Mackenzie Dimitri, who is the partner with the firm Einbinder and Dunn, has more than 13 years experience with complex commercial and franchise work in the legal field. Mackenzie and I, the fun fact is Mackenzie and I met a bunch of years ago, probably 5 or more, at a cocktail hour hosted by Women Own Law. And we have gone on over the years and developed a wonderful relationship and, most importantly, a great friendship. So welcome, Mackenzie.
Thank you so much for having me, Ivy.
So let's take a step back and let people catch up, because you and I can jump right in very easily.
Sure.
Becoming an attorney, is this something you always drove to do? Is this, something that happened? How did that occur for you, that you created this career for yourself?
No, I absolutely didn't set out to be an attorney. And in college, I was set on, I really wanted to be an investigative reporter. That was,
I never knew that.
I did. Yeah. I went to journalism school. I really loved print journalism. I liked writing and researching. And it was during a journalism class I took on the First Amendment. And then the school I went to Syracuse University, and they require all the journalism students to either have a double major or a minor, so that you're writing and you have something to talk about, I guess, and
makes sense.
Makes you a little more well-rounded. And in my political science class, I was a political science minor, and I took a criminal justice class. And between the two of those, it kind of blew me away. I was like, well, this is something I have to look into a little more. That coupled with a not so exciting internship at a local paper. And I thought maybe I want to try law school. So I did a little more research, and that's kind of how I wound up going to law school.
And, there's a lot of people who go to law school, and not everybody builds a career and becomes a partner in a law firm. So right. Share a little bit about that piece of your journey, and let's also call it out in being a women leader. Because I'm curious, in the journey, how was the competition between men and women? Was there more or less? Did it matter?
Mm-hmm. So I think so. When I went to law school, and I was in estate planning and a tax concentration in law school, which also was, so this is sort of like my path to where I am now, was like full of trying something and thinking, okay, this isn't for me. This isn't for me. And the one thing that I thought in law school for sure, tying this back into your question, was that I did not want to go into litigation. Because all of the people that were in litigation, it seemed to attract all of the worst kinds of male law students, the most obnoxious, like just the jerks. And I thought, they're just going to argue with each other all day. This is not something I would be good at. It really turned me off from litigation, the kind of aggressive way that it was talked about. And I just thought that, I was too intimidated to do it in law school, I guess, or just sort of turned off by it. And I thought estate planning and tax was really interesting. Turns out I don't really think that. I wound up doing it and thinking, okay, this isn't really for me. But I have a background. I'm an athlete, or I was an athlete growing up, and I am really competitive. And after law school, I clerked, and then I got a job at a mid-sized firm, and they had me doing some litigation work just here and there. And I kept gravitating back to that. And it just checked so many boxes for me. So the one thing that I thought, I'm not aggressive enough. I'm not confrontational at all. I'm not this kind of person. So I didn't think it was a good fit. And as it turned out, I loved digging into the facts. I loved researching, putting together an argument. And I loved the actual arguing in court. I loved standing up in court and talking to people and talking to clients and all of that. So I kept going back to litigation over and over, to my surprise.
And did you find it was a boys' club or not? Is that no longer true?
I definitely think it's a boys' club. Yes, in a lot of ways. The women, the women that I meet, especially in litigation, because I think that it's a particular field in the law that women are kind of pushed out of in a lot of ways, especially after a certain age when they start having families. But the women that I do meet are really impressive and great at what they do. And I find them very inspiring. And I see women that stop. I have young associates who decide that litigation, because of the hours and because of the sometimes unfortunate way that they're treated by opposing counsel and kind of clients in a way, they're pushed out and they would be great at this. And I think that's a little bit unfortunate.
You've hunkered down into some specific areas, even within litigation. You've developed a specialty around franchise.
Yes.
So how did that, very often people, and we've interviewed, litigation, how do you develop this subspecialty and how did franchise come about for you?
Yeah. So, by mistake, kind of, or
I appreciate that.
Yeah, I was at a mid-sized New York firm. I loved the high quality work. I liked working for the types of clients we were working for and the types of cases and complex kind of research I was able to dig into. And I didn't want to give that up, but I did not like the bigger firm atmosphere. It was just, I wasn't getting a lot of mentorship. I was one of several attorneys on a case. I would research something and be really excited about it. And then it would just be one section of a brief that would, nobody would follow up with me about strategy. I wasn't getting the client interaction. So I started seeking out smaller law firms, but trying to find firms that still had interesting work, substantively, like something that was really interesting, more complex cases. And I found our firm. And I didn't know much about franchising when I start. And they said, no worries, we can teach that. And it really is an interesting practice area. It's mostly business to business contracts, business to business disputes, business to business issues. I started doing mostly litigation, and now I do my practice has sort of evolved where I do quite a bit of transactional work as well. So it's been a really good fit. And the franchise bar is kind of a small place, which is another.
Well, I was going to say, you've gotten now that you've really hunkered in, you're somebody who is big on kind of going in with 2+ feet, because now you're very involved in the, American Bar Association Forum on Franchising.
Yes.
And the Women's Caucus there and a few other things.
Sometimes I say, I think I have one speed. So if I'm going to do something, I want to try to do it. So yeah, I'm part of the Women's Caucus. I speak at a lot of conferences, and it's helpful because so many times I have a case come in and the attorney on the other side, or I know it's accompanied. Well, I know the attorney on the other side, or I know the general counsel for the company on the other side. And you can kind of, you can reach out informally and say, hey, I have this going on. What's the real story here? And avoid some of the unnecessary posturing and fighting, and get some faster, more effective results for your clients sometimes too.
Well, and I think that's a really valid and valued comment, because what I'm hearing you say is because it's a small area within the law, you really have had the opportunity to build major real relationships that cuts through a lot of the heavy, complex, litigation, arguing, that you can get to the heart of the problem faster and then get to resolution more effectively.
Yes. And I think what I said earlier about being turned off by litigation in law school, what I was turned off by was what I thought litigation was, and what I thought you had to be and who I pictured. And I think, unfortunately, the picture that we have of litigation is maybe a man, but like a very aggressive, confrontational person. And that's not really my style as a litigator. And I've learned that doesn't have to be how you do things, and actually can be much more effective if you're a zealous advocate, of course, but if you're collaborative and if you're forward thinking and creative and trying to reach out and solve problems as opposed to create more problems. So I've been able to it's been a nice practice area, because I feel like I've been able to find my own voice and my own style and way of doing things.
So I know you're busy. Okay. So, I said at the beginning, we've gotten to be friends over the years. You're a very busy woman. You're a mom of 2.
Yes.
Young ones,
Yep.
which is active.
They're 4 and 5. Yes.
In managing, you're being a partner, being involved in so many things that you're involved in, associations and otherwise, from the franchise bar to women in law to many other things that you do. How do you find the balance for you as a woman leader? So when we get personal there.
Mm-hmm. So it's been hard. And I've had to reassess and readjust my approach several times. In the law, sometimes I think a lot of women lawyers and women professionals, you push yourself. You want everything to be perfect. And sometimes I think this skill that I hadn't honed, because I could always push myself to spend more time at the office. I would go in on a Saturday, I would stay late, I would kind of agonize over certain things. And the skill that I had that has helped me the most as a mom is now realizing this is done. On the 3rd draft, we've got it, we've nailed it. And we don't need to rethink and question everything and go back through it all again. We are done with this, and let's move on to the next thing. And it's good from a billing standpoint too. There's not, you don't want to, as a young associate, you can spend more time, the redundancy is a little bit expected. And as you progress and your hourly rate goes up and you have to answer to clients a little bit more. That's been the biggest skill that's helped me, is saying, all right, this is finished. And being a bit more decisive and saying, it's time to move on to the next project. It's time to move this forward. And just sort of setting those boundaries so that, at the end of the day, I can go home. And I still do log on late at night sometimes to double check things and make sure things get done. But
well, there's questions out there of, can you actually become a partner? Can you become a major impactor at a firm and be a down to earth, true mom? And, I'll just say, I've been owning a business for, I became a business owner when my daughter was within her first birthday. And I always found things possible, but not everybody does. And so often, sometimes until we believe it at our hearts, we can't achieve it. So how did you know you can do this all?
So I think there were 2 big things that I feel really lucky about. And the first is that I had the privilege of waiting until I was established in my career and ready to have kids. And so we had been married for 5 years, and my parents were like, when are we going to get those grandkids? But I was able to wait and establish myself and know that I was at a firm that I wanted to stay at and make that decision and plan ahead. And that made a huge difference, because I wasn't nervous at all telling, then my bosses about my pregnancies, and they were so excited and they were really happy for me. And we worked out a maternity leave that made sense. And so that was really fortunate that I knew I was in a good place, and I knew that it would be happy news, and that they would work with me and they wanted me to stay. And then the other thing that
Well, they wanted to stay, you to stay because you are valued, you are of a value to the firm, and it behooves them. That creates that win-win approach.
Right. And then the other thing that I think was stroke of luck, although I didn't think so for a long time, was actually the pandemic. Because prior to the pandemic, I had a 1-year-old and a 2-year-old, and I was still traveling all the time for work, and I was in the office 5 days a week, and it was go, 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 go. I never picked my kids up from school. I didn't know any of the other moms. I felt a little bit, it was a whirlwind. And kids that age too, I think that's like part of it. But the pandemic, I think, forced everyone to acknowledge that you can get work done at home, that working from home is a viable option. It became an option for me. So now 2 days a week, I can do the school pickup. And I've made mom friends. So I have people I can say, hey, can you pick my son up on Wednesday and I'll be there 45 minutes late, or this, or, you have people, you have more of a community.
You have a network, you have a community.
Yeah. So I was able to develop that because I was here. And then
let's call a spade a spade. Did this, as the world has leveled out, has this become vulnerable being a partner in the firm?
I don't think so. I mean, I feel pretty confident. So I had my kids and then became a partner. I wasn't a partner before. So I became a partner, and I grew my book of business exponentially during that time. So I think that was it too, is that I wasn't just getting through what I used to do. I was still progressing professionally and taking on new challenges, and I was doing really well. And there were easy numbers to point to. So you could easily say, hey, I brought in this much business 1 year and I tripled it in 2 years. So that was like, it's hard. That made it a little easier.
You can't fight when you have a successful track record.
Yes. Yeah. And I think business origination is something that a lot of women don't talk about and should talk about more earlier in their careers, because you can be really hardworking and stay, with your butt in the seat the longest, and you can get great work product. But I think that business generation piece gives you so much more leverage and autonomy and control over your path. And I think especially young female lawyers are missing that mentorship that I had from you, Ivy, partly, and I had from other people. Like I was really lucky in that I was sure that I really wanted to be a business generator and out there and trying, and my firm was supporting me.
So let's talk about because I agree. I think business generation, sometimes a lot of people think it's hard or it's not for them, and a lot of other things. What has been successful for you in business generation, in building what is considered a book of business?
So I can talk to anybody. And I think that was the biggest thing, is just jumping in and trying. And I was given the opportunity to sit in on several business generation calls with my bosses when I first started. And I would just write down everything that they said. And I would ask them, can I mimic that call with you now? So we would get off the call and I was like, can I try this? And they thought that was great that I asked. And I asked a million questions about how they got their clients, who they met them, how they built them, how they decided who was staffed on what matters. And so I got a ton of information early on, and I had some voices and some phrases and some things that I could fall back on when I was finally then going to, we go to a lot of conferences, like trade conferences in franchising. So being able to talk to a restaurateur or a hotel operator and understanding the kinds of issues that they see in their businesses, talking to someone about a POS system, and just, having had that come up in a case recently, and talking to someone about the private equity firm that's investing in their franchisor and what that might mean for their real estate development team or something like that. And just so having the business knowledge on one really helped me, because I could just go in and talk to people and ask questions and be curious about their business. And then the legal part's kind of easy after that.
Well, the one of the things that I love what you're saying is to go in and ask questions. And so often people there's a misnomer around being a business development person, that you're pitching or selling and this and that.
Mhm.
Yet when you reverse that and you just come in from a place of curiosity and asking questions, it's amazing what you learn and the relationships that then turn into business.
Yeah, I think a lot of times too, taking that step back and saying to, people will come in with what they think is their problem. And if you ask enough questions, well, what do you want? And what's the ultimate goal? And maybe that's not the problem. Maybe it's this that you're looking at. We were talking to a client about a totally unrelated issue recently. And she just mentioned on the call that she was stressed because this certain document was taking forever, and it always took forever every year for their accountants to approve the financials and And we said, well, why do you think that is? Why don't you send us over, certain documents? And we were able to talk to her and say, maybe it's your corporate structure. We could simplify this, and this yearly filing would take days as opposed to months to complete. And it shouldn't, and so we were able to kind of just talking to people and asking a lot of questions and hearing about what impacts their day to day is, I think asking a smart question is so much more valuable than coming in thinking you know the answer or faking it, God forbid. I think people see right through that.
I can't agree more. So if we look at one tip or one thing you would love to share forward as a woman who has accomplished a lot,
Mm-hmm.
And also has the value, you've built as much in relationships on the personal side as you have on the professional side. And I think, one of the reasons I was really excited to interview you for Her Success Story is the role model you are as, a leader in a woman leader in the law, a partner in a successful firm in New York City, a mom of 2 great kids, and, have developed so much on the personal side as well. So what would you love to leave as a tip, a legacy here?
So one of the things I struggle with, and I struggle with it now. I'm a new, I've been a partner for a while but a business owner for only a few years. And all the challenges that come with, the types of cases we have, the types of clients we serve, and the work we do, I have this imposter syndrome that a lot of people have. And so I think the thing that's helped me the most with this is to reach out to a lot of people, ask people a million questions, and see who makes you feel empowered. Gravitate towards people who will answer your questions, who treat your curiosity as a good thing and not as though you're being presumptuous, who encourage you and who make you feel like you are on your right path, or who help you on your path. So you, of course, were one of those people for me, Ivy, and I'm super flattered that you invited me. And the way you see me is hugely empowering. So surround yourself with people that see you the way you want to be and who help you on that path.
I love that. Surround yourself with people who see you the way you want to be.
Yes.
So your vision for yourself moving forward, and it gives yourself a little bit of a chance to step into your confidence into that. I love it.
Yes. So there's this poem, and the poet is Rupi Kaur. And one of the last lines of it, it's about aging. And I was looking at it because yesterday was my birthday. But the last line of it, I think, is a little bit fitting. So I think you surround yourself with people who remind you of this. The last line is, what a privilege it is to grow into the finest version of myself. So, continue pushing yourself and growing, but stay centered and remember who you are, and surround yourself with those people that, can help you become the best version of yourself.
I love that. Well, thank you, Mackenzie, for joining me here today.
Oh, thank you for having me.
And I look forward to seeing you at many more Women-Owned Law events. And for those of you who are just joining in, there's a great symposium in April with Women-Owned Law, as well as we're a national organization. So check it out. Feel free to learn more. It's all about women leaders in the law and entrepreneurship. So if something resonated with you as you listen to Mackenzie and I chat today, take a moment and say, that's my takeaway. That's my aha. Write it down. Feel free to put it in the show notes, and then commit to an action that you're going to take. So it's always about listening, learning, absorbing, and most importantly, the actions you take from there. If this was a great episode for you, feel free to share it forward. We come into your inbox every Monday with wonderful, great guests just like Mackenzie. See you next week.